Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. I wanted to get on here and talk a little bit today about how to survive threats of abuse. I don't know how many other people have experienced physical violence or sexual violence at the hands of another person. I'm sure that a lot of it happens, and we all know that a lot of it goes unreported. So the true statistics of the people that have experienced this are not accurate, but we can assume from the amount of information available from people who have come forward that it is an epidemic. When it comes to seeking resources and support in situations like that, it can be very frustrating for the survivor of incidents like that, because a lot of the resources that purport to be able to help you in those situations really are limited in scope in terms of what they're able to do to ensure your safety. When it comes right down to it, a restraining order against someone for threats of harm or actual harm is simply a piece of paper. And if they want to harm you, that piece of paper is not going to stop them, because people that physically abuse other people do not understand or respect boundaries. That's why they engage in that type of conduct to begin with. They don't respect the law, they don't respect themselves, and they certainly don't respect other people or their bodily autonomy. The best resource that you have when it comes to threats against your life is to train yourself in self-defense. I highly recommend that if you've been subjected to that sort of experience, that you seek out training in martial arts, that you seek out training in self-defense in whatever capacity you can. The wonderful thing about where we live is that there are often free resources available for survivors of domestic violence to hone their skills in self-defense. This is critical because as you're preparing to leave an abusive situation, that is often when things escalate. That's often when you're in the most danger. Another thing I will say is do your best not to reveal your plans, especially to that person, but even to other people, that information can get back to that person. Because when you're leaving a situation that's unsafe, it's not going to be clear right away who is trustworthy. There will be a period that you will need to take of isolation so that you can really determine who within your circle, within your sphere of influence, is a safe person for you to confide in. The best suggestion I can give you is take every issue that you're struggling with to God first. Try not to reveal too much to outside parties. It's certainly reasonable if you want to discuss those things with a medical health expert, or if you want to discuss those issues with your local police department, so that they are aware of the situation. Because if something should occur and someone in the past has threatened your life, there will be documentation of that. You also want to make sure that if you do seek help from your local police department, make sure that those authorities document it in writing and give you a report number. The reason that this is important is you simply going up there and expressing what's going on doesn't ensure that they're going to take a report. You need to ask for that to be done. There has to be a paper trail of the threats against you so that if things escalate, and I certainly pray that they don't for anyone, but should that occur, you want to make sure that there is a documented trail of this conduct. One of the things that we're seeing in society right now that is extremely problematic is perpetrators of domestic violence are not being held accountable for their behavior by the judicial system. The judicial system is empowering criminal behavior and criminal abuse. I would like you to ask yourself, why do you think that is? Is it more lucrative for the judicial system to exacerbate the problem by not enforcing the law, by not enforcing criminal penalties on people that are harming other people to such an extent that they are killing them or driving them to a point psychologically where they're killing themselves? The legal system is defective in a lot of ways. If this is something that speaks to your conscience and you feel that you would like to help reform these systems, the best place to start is probably with your local representative in charge of putting forward new legislation to try to get these things addressed at a meaningful level. However, even change legislation doesn't do anything if the judicial bodies don't enforce the law. The interesting thing about being in the position of a judge, though, is that they are also not above the law. They are accountable. And there are plenty of examples of judges who have willfully and knowingly disobeyed the law and engaged in fraud and all sorts of other things that have lost their ability to sit in that position of power and prestige. Being a judge is a very, very responsible duty. You have to be extremely responsible to hold that position. I've come across judges that I thought were making wrong calls, and I've also encountered judges that I thought were fair and just. Even if the outcome wasn't exactly what I thought should be done, I could see how, from their perspective, it was a fair decision. There have been others that were so extremely blatantly biased that I was awestruck. So you never know what you're dealing with until you develop more of a knowledge base of how that judge is operating. And please keep in mind that as someone who respects the law, I do respect their position as judicial authorities. I may not agree with their decisions. I may think that their decisions are extremely harmful to a lot of people. And I've seen that happen over and over again. However, there are those among the judiciary that are doing things the right way. I believe that those that are following the letter of the law are outnumbered by those that aren't in that position, and that's unfortunate. I don't know if you live in a state where it is handled through election rather than appointment, as far as who is appointed or who is elected to be a judge. Some states, they are elected, and in some states, they are appointed. I firmly believe that appointing judges is problematic because it gives them a level of impunity for their actions that they should not be able to have. I think until we remedy that in all states at a legislative level, it's going to be more of a problem because you're not really going to be representing the voices of the majority of people if you're not elected. You're going to be putting forth the opinions of special interest groups largely because you're appointed. That can happen also with elections because depending on how your campaign is financed, that can also be a problem. However, I think it's less likely to be a problem if all members of the judiciary were required to be elected and could also be taken out of that position after a certain amount of time if the people that elected them elect somebody new. So I feel like that is probably a better solution to the ongoing corruption that is rampant in a lot of aspects of not only civil but criminal court. I hope that you found this talk helpful. I know it addressed a variety of subjects, but I think it's important because when we talk about surviving domestic violence, if we are in a situation where the legal system is empowering that abuse to continue, what are we to do? We ask ourselves why so much of it goes unreported. Well, if men and women that are experiencing this are witness to what goes on in the court system and see how little is done or how nothing is done to ensure their survival and safety, they may feel like it's more dangerous for them to talk about what's been happening. We live in a fallen world, and suffering seems to be unavoidable. I hope that in your prayers, you're able to see what is still redeeming in the relationships that you have with others. And despite whether or not you've been hurt before, I hope that you're able to open yourself up to trust again. It's not easy, and it's never going to be easy to do that after being severely harmed by another person. We all carry our scars. We all carry our wounds. But it's up to you whether or not you heal those wounds or whether you use those wounds as a justification to wound others. God bless.